I need you to listen closely, because I'm not telling this story for shock value or drama. I'm telling it because the night my sister showed up at my door with her face bruised, her body shaking, and her voice barely holding itself together, something inside me changed forever. I've replayed that moment in my mind 1,000 times, trying to figure out the exact second when everything shifted, when the version of me that simply watched her suffer died and something colder, sharper, and infinitely more determined took its place. When I opened the door, I didn't recognize her at first. It wasn't just the bruises on her face or the way she winced every time she tried to breathe, it was the way she stood there like she was afraid the ground itself might give out under her. Leah had always been expressive, full of emotion, full of light, the kind of woman who made people feel warm just by smiling at them. But that night her eyes looked empty. Not sad. Not scared. Just empty, like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything that made her who she was. She whispered my name the way someone whispers a secret they're scared to speak aloud. And I remember thinking, not in words, but in a sudden, instinctive way, that she wasn't just hurt. She was unraveling. She stepped inside, and her knees buckled like her legs couldn't carry her anymore. I grabbed her before she hit the floor, and she clung to me like she was drowning, and I was the only thing keeping her above the surface. Her whole body trembled against mine, tiny shivers that ran up her spine and shook her shoulders. I could smell blood in her hair, sharp and metallic. And even though I hadn't seen who did it, I didn't need to. I already knew. His name wasn't worth saying. Her husband. The man she thought she loved. The man everyone else thought was charming, responsible, protective. The man who walked into a room and made people feel safe while privately making her feel like a prisoner in her own home. He didn't start by hitting her. No abuser does. It always starts with little things, a comment about her clothes, a question about where she went and why she took so long, a complaint about her tone, her timing, her attitude. Then it grows. Slowly, carefully. Until one day she realizes she can't even breathe without worrying whether the sound might annoy him. Leah kept apologizing, telling me she was sorry for coming over so late, sorry for bothering me, sorry she made things difficult. And hearing her apologize for being brutalized made something inside my chest snap. I asked her what happened. She tried to lie, she always did, but this time the lie was paper thin. I fell, she said, voice barely above a whisper. You know how clumsy I am. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She broke down crying instantly. Real crying, not the quiet little tears she usually tried to hide. She sobbed so hard she shook, covering her face with her hands like she was ashamed of the bruises he'd left on her. She told me he'd come home drunk again. Told me he was mad the house wasn't clean enough. Told me he hated the dinner she made. Told me she talked too loud. Stood too close. Breathed too heavy. Told me she was stupid, useless, worthless. Told me he didn't want other men looking at her. Told me she was lucky he even stayed with her. Then she told me about the part that made my heart stop, when he shoved her into the dresser. She couldn't breathe for a moment. She thought, just for a second, that he'd cracked a rib. And instead of apologizing or helping her, he told her she deserved it. She kept repeating, I should have known better. I should have just stayed quiet. That was the moment I realized he didn't just hurt her body, he had poisoned her mind. He had made her believe she was responsible for his violence. He had made her believe she was the problem. I took her hands, held them tight, and asked her the question I think she'd been waiting years for someone to ask, do you want to leave him? Her reaction broke my heart. She flinched like the words themselves could hurt her. I can't, she whispered. He'll find me. He always finds me. And if he finds out I'm here, he'll come after you. She wasn't talking like a wife. She was talking like someone hiding from a monster. But here's the thing about having a twin, when one of us is in danger, the other doesn't get to sit still. We were born together. We grew together. We shared everything, clothes, birthdays, memories, private jokes, secrets. And now we shared this. I looked at her face, our face, and something sharp and electric ran through me. A sense of certainty. Purpose. Rage wrapped in clarity. And I heard myself say the words before I could even think them through, then don't go back. I will. At first she didn't understand. She stared at me through swollen eyelids, confusion flickering across her face like a dying candle. Then she realized what I meant. No, she said, shaking her head. You can't. You don't know what he's like. But I did know. I had seen the aftermath of what he was like for years. I just hadn't done anything about it, until now. I told her exactly what was going to happen. She would stay with me. She would lock the doors. She would sleep. She would eat. She would finally feel safe. And I would go in her place. Because we were identical. Same height, same voice, same face. And unlike her, I wasn't conditioned to fear him. I wasn't scared of his anger. I wasn't going to shrink myself to fit inside his expectations. I spent the entire night preparing. I made her walk me through every detail of her day, the chores he expected, the tone he wanted, the behaviors he demanded. I practiced her voice, the way she softened her okay, the way she lowered her head slightly when she answered him, the way she avoided making too much eye contact because it made him suspicious. I memorized her fears, and in doing so, I memorized his control. And that's when I realized just how deep his hold on her went. It wasn't just physical. It was psychological. Emotional. Almost spiritual. He had turned her into a shadow of herself. But he had no idea that shadow had a twin who still carried fire inside her. When morning came, I dressed in her clothes, tied my hair like she did, and left my phone behind. I took her keys, her purse, her quietness, and walked straight into the nightmare she'd been living in. And the craziest part? I wasn't nervous. Not even a little. My heartbeat didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. I felt calm. Focused. Like this was the single most necessary thing I had ever done. When I opened the door to her house, their house, I stepped inside as if I belonged there. The living room smelled like stale beer and cheap cologne. He was sitting on the couch, spreading himself out like he owned the world. He didn't even bother looking at me when he spoke. What the hell took you so long? His voice was dripping with irritation, not concern. Like my sister was just an inconvenience, something he tolerated between drinks and anger. I didn't answer right away. I let him wait. And that, just that, was enough to make him finally turn his head. He looked at me expecting the same timid, apologetic expression he'd beaten into her. But instead, he saw something else. Something unfamiliar. Something that didn't bow to him. He frowned, confused. He didn't recognize the fire in my eyes because Leah hadn't had that fire in years. But I did. And seeing the flicker of uncertainty on his face told me everything I needed to know. He felt it. Something was different. Something was off. Something was wrong, and he couldn't name it. And that was the exact moment I realized he had absolutely no idea who he was dealing with now. He thought I was Leah. He thought I was the woman he controlled, manipulated, threatened, and broke down day after day. But he was wrong. I wasn't her. I was the part of her he had never met. The part he could never break. The part that came back stronger every time life tried to crush us. I was her sister. And his time was up. The moment he looked at me with that confused, irritated squint, I felt something shift inside me, not fear, not anxiety, but a cold sense of control I'd never known before. For years I had watched my sister live in a constant state of panic around him, measuring every breath, every step, every word. But standing there in her house, wearing her clothes, speaking in her voice, I felt none of that. I felt powerful. I felt dangerous. And for the first time, he felt uncertain. He stood up slowly, shoulders stiffening the way a man's do when he senses he's losing his grip on something he thinks he owns. "What's your problem?" he asked, taking a step closer like he expected me to shrink back. But I didn't move. Not an inch. Leah would have apologized already. She always apologized, even for things she didn't do, things she couldn't control, things he created just to watch her scramble. But I stood still and let the silence hang between us like a tension wire about to snap. He hated silence unless he was the one creating it. He hated being confused. He hated not knowing what was happening. And right then, he hated me, because he thought I was her, but nothing about me was behaving like the version of her he had molded. "I asked you a question," he said, taking another step toward me, his voice lowering into that dark, dangerous tone he used to intimidate her. I didn't answer. I just stared. That stare did something to him. I watched it happen in real time, the way his expression tightened, the way he glanced at my posture, my eyes, the way he tilted his head like he was trying to read something that wasn't written in a language he understood. "Don't look at me like that," he snapped. "You know I don't like that." Leah had told me that before, how he couldn't stand when she made eye contact for too long, how he took it as attitude, challenge, disrespect. So I kept looking. And the angrier he got, the calmer I felt. "Where were you?" he demanded. "I texted you. I called. You think you can disappear whenever you want?" I let out a slow breath, making sure to keep my voice soft like hers, but not apologetic like he expected. "I needed a break," I said simply. The shock on his face would have been funny if it weren't tied to years of abuse. Leah never said she needed anything. She never made requests. She never stated boundaries. So hearing those words in her voice made something dark ripple across his expression. He stepped closer, close enough for me to smell the stale alcohol on his breath. "A break from what?" he said quietly, coldly. "From me? From this house?" "From everything," I said, letting the faintest edge creep into my voice. "I just needed time." His hand twitched, just barely, but enough for me to catch it. Leah told me that twitch usually meant he was seconds away from hitting her. My muscles tensed on instinct, but not out of fear, out of readiness. If he raised his hand at me, the lesson would begin right then and there. But he didn't. Something stopped him. Maybe it was the steadiness in my eyes. Maybe it was the way I wasn't shaking like she always did. Maybe he sensed, in some primal, animal way, that something had shifted in the balance of power. He lowered his hand slowly. "Go change," he muttered, turning away. "You look like a mess." I stayed still. He turned back, annoyed. "Did you hear me?" "I heard you," I replied. But I didn't move. His jaw tightened. "Then do what I said." Instead of obeying, I tilted my head just slightly, a movement I knew would throw him off balance. Leah always moved carefully around him, no sudden gestures, no questioning looks, no signs of resistance. But I wasn't her. "Why?" I asked. One simple word. One forbidden word. Leah told me she had stopped asking why years ago because every time she did, he accused her of talking back. And judging by the way his eyes darkened, the rule was still very much alive. "Because I told you to," he growled. "That's why." "That's not a reason," I said. His mouth opened slightly, almost like he was too shocked to react. For a man who relied entirely on dominance, this tiny act of rebellion was like flipping a match near gasoline. "Are you trying to start something?" he asked finally. His voice had gone quieter, more dangerous. This was the tone Leah had warned me about, the tone he used right before he exploded. "No," I said softly. "I'm trying to understand." He blinked, confused again, and I realized my angle was working. He didn't know how to fight something he couldn't identify. He only knew how to overpower fear, not defiance. Or strategy. He took a step back, unsure now, reassessing me like I had become a puzzle he didn't know how to solve. "You're acting weird," he muttered. "Did you take something? Are you on meds? What's going on with you?" I shrugged gently. "Maybe I just got tired." The words hit him hard. He took a moment to process them. He wasn't used to being told that he wore someone out, only that he was the man of the house, the one who held everything together. His ego didn't know how to handle accountability. "Tired of what?" he said through clenched teeth. "Of me?" I let silence answer for me. And that silence devastated him more than any accusation could. He paced the living room like he was trying to walk off a bad feeling. Then he turned suddenly, pointing a finger at me. "You better not be trying to leave," he growled. "You better not be planning anything stupid." I raised an eyebrow, but just barely, enough for him to feel the implication, not enough for him to name it. "I didn't say anything about leaving." "Good," he snapped. "Because you know damn well you can't handle life on your own." I felt a wave of disgust roll through me, but I kept my expression neutral. "Leah told me you loved to push this narrative, that she was helpless without him, that she couldn't survive alone, that nobody else would want her if she tried to leave." I had heard a lot of lies in my life, but that one was the worst. I decided to test him. To see how far I could go without breaking the illusion. "You think I need you to survive?" I asked quietly. He froze. I saw the exact second his brain registered danger. "What's that supposed to mean?" I kept my voice gentle, as if I were simply thinking out loud. "I'm just saying. I've been alone before. I handled things." His jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. "Don't start with that independent woman crap," he spat. "You think you don't need me? Who pays the bills? Who keeps this house running? Who protects you?" Protects. The irony. The audacity. I felt my stomach turn, but I forced myself to remain still. Then I leaned forward just slightly, letting my voice drop low, intimate, dangerous in its calmness. "Who protects me from you?" His whole body stiffened. For a moment I thought he would swing. For a moment I wanted him to. It would have given me the excuse to end this right there. But no, he was too thrown off, too confused, too busy trying to make sense of why his obedient wife suddenly had the confidence of someone who wasn't afraid. He stepped back, shoulders rising and falling with angry breaths. "You're not acting like yourself," he said. "You're being disrespectful. You know what happens when you get like this." A threat. Subtle enough to sound like a warning, but clear enough to make Leah cower. I didn't cower. "What happens?" I asked. His nostrils flared. "Don't push me. Then don't threaten me." The silence after that line lasted long enough to make the room feel heavy. He stared at me like he didn't know whether I was losing my mind or finding it. And honestly, maybe it was both. Finally, he turned away, muttering curses under his breath, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to massage out the loss of control. "I need a drink," he said and walked into the kitchen. I stayed where I was, listening to the sound of a bottle opening, liquid pouring, ice hitting glass. I used the moment to scan the house, not with fear, but with purpose. I looked at the shelves she dusted every day. The photo frames she positioned perfectly because he hated crooked things. The couch she wasn't allowed to sit on unless he invited her. The kitchen she cooked in but wasn't allowed to modify. The back door he always kept locked for safety, though everyone knew the only person she was being locked away from was the outside world. I realized then that I wasn't just in his territory, I was in the museum of his control. And he had no idea that the woman standing in his living room wasn't the one he spent years conditioning. I walked to the kitchen doorway and leaned against the frame, not timidly like Leah would, but with presence. with quiet confidence. "What are you staring at?" he snapped without turning around. "You," I said simply. He turned. Slowly. "Why?" he asked, suspicious. "Just thinking," I murmured. "About what?" I let my eyes drift over him, deliberately slow, deliberately assessing. "About how much things are about to change." He frowned, gripping his glass tighter. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I smiled. A small, knowing smile. The kind of smile that plants a seed in a man's mind, a seed of doubt, fear, uncertainty. "You'll see," I said softly. "Soon." He didn't know it yet, but the lesson had already begun. When he finally went upstairs that night, mumbling something about needing space because I was acting crazy, I stayed in the living room, standing completely still in the middle of his kingdom. It was strange. Leah had described this house to me with such suffocating detail over the years that it almost felt familiar, yet standing inside it myself, it felt like walking into someone else's nightmare. The walls were spotless, almost unnaturally so. Leah told me he made her scrub them with vinegar every month so the house wouldn't smell like a woman lived there. The throw pillows were arranged in a specific order on the couch, an order he insisted on, because a proper home shouldn't look lived in. The floors gleamed, not a streak or smudge anywhere, because he didn't like seeing footprints. It made him think she'd been pacing, or thinking too much. Every corner, every object, every detail whispered about control. Not love. Not partnership. Control. I walked around slowly, letting my fingers graze surfaces she probably wasn't allowed to touch freely. I could almost feel her panic seeping out of the furniture, the walls, the carpet. I imagined her waking up every morning before him so she could clean, cook, and prepare everything just perfectly so he wouldn't find some tiny excuse to explode. I saw the indentation in the couch, the one spot she always sat in, because he didn't want her wearing down the furniture evenly. I noticed the absence of personal things. No pictures of her. Not a single item that looked like it belonged to a woman who had dreams, hobbies, or a personality. Leah told me once he didn't like clutter, but what he really didn't like was anything that belonged to her. She wasn't allowed to display herself in her own house. She wasn't allowed to take up space. And then something caught my attention, the dining table. 4 chairs. But only one showed real signs of use, the one at the head. His. Leah's chair had a cushion on it to hide the wear from him, because if he saw that it was used too much, he accused her of sitting around all day doing nothing. I stared at that cushion for a long moment, thinking about all the tiny humiliations she had accepted the way a person accepts crumbs when they've been starved. It hit me then, this wasn't just emotional abuse or physical abuse. It was erasure. He had erased her from her own life. And now I was here, her face, her voice, but not her. Not broken. Not compliant. Not small. I turned toward the staircase and exhaled slowly. If I wanted this to work, I had to get closer to him. I had to let him talk. I had to let him reveal the patterns Leah had been living under. Because you can't tear down a monster until you understand exactly how it thinks. So I waited. And eventually, after about 20 minutes of pacing overhead, stomping to make sure I heard his frustration, he called out, "Leah. Come here." The tone was a command, not a request. The kind of tone that made my sister's stomach twist into knots. I walked upstairs slowly, not timidly, but deliberately. And something unexpected happened. The slower I walked, the more uneasy he became. He didn't know why, but something about the pace, the posture, the quiet confidence, it didn't match the woman he controlled. He was in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with his arms crossed like he was preparing to give a lecture. When I stepped inside, he didn't look up right away. He needed me to feel like I was entering a courtroom where he was judge, jury, executioner. That was his ritual. Leah told me he used silence as a weapon, because silence made her fidget, apologize, explain. But silence didn't do that to me. Silence gave me space to observe. His posture. His breathing. The twitch of his jaw. The faint bruise on his knuckles, a bruise he gave himself by using my sister as a punching bag. "Sit," he said finally. He didn't pat the bed beside him. He pointed to the spot. A specific distance from him. A specific angle. A position designed to make her feel small and contained. I walked closer, but instead of sitting exactly where he pointed, I sat 2 inches farther away. Not enough for him to fully process, but enough to disrupt his script. His eyes twitched, but he didn't comment yet. "What's going on with you today?" he asked. His tone was deceptively calm, but I could hear the irritation simmering underneath. "You're acting off." "Maybe I'm just tired," I said. He scoffed. "You're always tired." That's not new. The way he said it made my stomach burn. Like her exhaustion was an inconvenience to him. Like her humanity was an annoyance. "You disappeared last night," he continued. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" "I needed air." "You needed permission," he corrected sharply. "Leah, we've talked about this." I tilted my head slightly, watching him. "Have we?" He blinked. Twice. Confusion and irritation collided in his expression. "Don't play dumb with me," he snapped. "You know the rules." Rules. The word echoed in the room like a siren. Leah told me about the rules. Clean the entire house before 9 a.m. Answer every call by the second ring. No leaving the house without notifying him. No makeup unless he approved it. No friends unless he was present. No talking to men at all. No talking back. No disagreeing. No questioning. No displaying sadness, because he called that emotional manipulation. No showing fear, because he said fear is disrespect. The rules were endless. And they were all designed for one thing: absolute control. I kept my gaze steady. "What are the rules again?" His eyebrows shot up. "Are you trying to piss me off?" "No," I said softly. "I just want to hear you say them." He stood up so fast the bed shook. For a second, I thought he'd hit me. He walked toward me slowly, like a storm gathering momentum, each step heavy and tense. "You think this is a game?" he asked. "You think I enjoy repeating myself?" I looked up at him calmly. Maybe I forgot. His nostrils flared hard. He reached down and grabbed my wrist. It wasn't a full hit, but it was meant to intimidate, to check my reaction, to test my fear. Leah told me this was how it always started. The grab. The squeeze. The warning. I let him hold my wrist. But I didn't flinch. I didn't wince. I didn't shrink. I stared at him with the same stillness a predator has when it's letting its prey make the first mistake. And something shifted. His grip loosened. Not because he felt kind, but because he felt confused. "What is wrong with you today?" he asked, voice suddenly quieter, almost uneasy. "You're not yourself." I leaned in slightly, just enough to make him feel the unease he'd forced onto my sister for years. "Maybe," I whispered, "this is who I was all along. You just never let me show it." His breath caught. A tiny sound. Almost imperceptible. But I heard it. And I realized he was starting to feel something he had never felt in this house, threatened. He released my wrist slowly. "Go take a shower," he muttered. "You're acting weird. Maybe you'll calm down." He turned away from me. And that's when something dangerous, something powerful rose inside me, not the desire to hurt him, not yet, but the desire to dismantle him piece by piece. I stood up, walked behind him, and said quietly, "You know, I'm starting to wonder what life would be like if I didn't have to walk on eggshells every second." He froze. Completely. I saw the muscles in his back tighten, his shoulders locking like his entire body had just turned to stone. "What did you say?" he whispered without turning around. I walked to the far side of the room, slowly, deliberately, like I owned the space. "I'm just thinking out loud," I said. Wondering what it would feel like to breathe without asking permission. He turned then, fast, eyes blazing, face red. "You're playing a dangerous game," he growled. "You think I won't put you in your place?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Try." His face twisted in shock and fury. Leah told me he'd always fantasized about having total power, but deep down he was a coward who only struck when she was afraid. Fear fueled him. Her submission fed him. Without it, he was just a man. A weak one. A small one. A bully dressed up as a husband. And now he stood in front of a woman who wore his wife's face but not her fear. It unhinged him. "You're not going anywhere," he said finally. "I don't care what's gotten into you, you're not leaving this house until I say so." I smiled. "We'll see." He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. For a long time, I just stood there, breathing, letting the adrenaline settle in my body. Then I walked toward the mirror. Leah's face stared back at me. Her eyes. Her cheekbones. Her hair. But behind all of that was me, the sister who didn't break, who didn't bow, who didn't scare. And suddenly I knew exactly what the next step had to be. I had rattled him. But rattling wasn't enough. I had to make him unravel. I had to make him show his true self so thoroughly, so explosively, that even he wouldn't be able to hide from it. Because the only way to break a man like him is to make him break himself. And that was exactly what I intended to do next. I didn't sleep that night. I wasn't sure if he did either. The house felt like a battlefield after a ceasefire, the kind where nobody trusts the silence, where every creak in the walls sounds like a warning, where both sides are awake, waiting, calculating. I stayed in the bedroom for hours, pacing slowly, memorizing every inch of the space Leah had spent years shrinking inside of. Her perfume bottle was half empty, shoved behind his cologne on the dresser like she wasn't allowed to display herself. Her jewelry box had only 2 items in it, pieces he bought for her so she wouldn't look cheap, but pieces she rarely wore because if she wore the wrong one on the wrong day, he'd accuse her of trying to attract attention. Her dresser drawers were meticulously organized, not by her, but by him, because he said she folded clothes like a child. I opened one drawer slowly, just enough to see the rows of shirts stacked like merchandise, color-coded, perfectly aligned, not a wrinkle in sight. It was eerie. Mechanical. Not a home, an exhibit. I felt anger rising in my chest, slow and hot and controlled. This wasn't order. This wasn't neatness. This was domination disguised as tidiness. This was a cage with perfect corners. And Leah had been praised for keeping it spotless. I closed the drawer quietly and stared out the window at the street below, empty and dim, the street lamps casting long shadows that stretched over the sidewalk like fingers reaching for something they'd never touch. At some point around dawn, I heard him moving, heavy footsteps down the hall, the sound of the bathroom door opening and closing, water running. A normal morning for him, probably. A morning where his wife should be preparing breakfast, fixing the bed, cleaning whatever imaginary flaw he would point out next. But this morning, I wasn't going to move the way she did. I wasn't going to offer him peace or predictability. I walked downstairs deliberately late, 20 minutes after he usually expected her to be in the kitchen. When I entered, he was already standing there with his coffee, leaning against the counter with that arrogant posture he used when he thought he was being patient. "You're late," he said, not looking up from his phone. I said nothing. I walked right past him, opened a cabinet, and grabbed a glass, not the one Leah usually used, not the one he designated as her cup, but one of the tall ones he reserved for guests. He looked up instantly, eyebrows pulling together. "That's not your glass," he snapped. "Why does it matter?" I asked calmly. "Because I said so." That's not a reason, I said, repeating his own weakness back to him with a soft tone that made it land twice as hard. His phone lowered. His eyes fixed on me. You're doing it again, he said. Talking back. I took a sip of water, unfazed. Maybe I'm just talking. Men like him don't know the difference. You know, he said, voice steady but tense, I've been reading up on personality changes in women. Hormones, mental stuff, sometimes they get unpredictable. Irrational. I almost laughed. That was his plan? To diagnose me? To pathologize the fact that I wasn't trembling under him? Maybe I'm finally thinking clearly, I said. Or maybe you're losing it, he shot back. Maybe you're trying to provoke me. And if I am? I asked. That line hit him like a slap. He set his coffee down so hard it splashed over the rim. I don't know what game you're playing, he growled, but you better cut it out before you regret it. I leaned against the counter, mirroring his posture. Maybe I'm not playing anymore. He stepped toward me slowly, testing me like a man poking at a stray dog to see if it would bite. Do you want me to remind you how things work in this house? He asked. Do you want me to remind you what happens when you get out of line? I lowered my voice, making sure every word cut cleanly. Go ahead. Remind me. His eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to threats being thrown back at him. His power depended on fear, and I wasn't giving him any. I watched him struggle with it, watched him fight the urge to lash out while trying to keep the illusion that he was the calm one. But the tension in his jaw, the tapping of his fingers against the counter, the way he inhaled sharply through his nose, he was unraveling. And I needed him to. You think you can just disrespect me? He asked. You think you can just waltz around this house and challenge me like I'm nothing? Do you feel like nothing? I asked, tilting my head. He flinched. I saw it. A tiny wince, but real. He hated feeling exposed, hated hearing in my voice what he tried to hide from the world, that beneath all the yelling and the threats, he was fragile. He was paper thin. He stepped closer again, so close I could see the pulse in his neck, fast and uneven. You're pushing me, he whispered. Why? Why are you doing this? Because you broke my sister. Because you made her believe she was small. Because you conditioned her to think she was dependent on you. Because you stole years from her life. Because you don't deserve the power you've built on her suffering. Because someone finally needs to show you that you are not untouchable. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and said, maybe I want to see who you really are. For a moment, he froze. And then he laughed. A short, ugly laugh, one that didn't reach his eyes. You think you can handle who I really am? He said. I already am, I replied. The laughter stopped. The air between us grew cold. You're different, he said finally. You're not Leah. My heart stopped. But my face didn't move. What do you mean? I asked, keeping my expression neutral. He studied me, really studied me, with a suspicion he hadn't allowed himself to feel before. You look like her, he said slowly. You sound like her. But something about you, something's off. My pulse quickened, but I made sure my body didn't betray it. People change, I said smoothly. Not like this. Maybe you never really knew me, I said. I know you, he insisted, stepping closer. I know every part of you. Every habit. Every fear. Every flaw. I know when you're lying. Do you? I whispered. He leaned in, so close I could feel his breath on my skin. I do. Another lie. He didn't know me at all. If you knew me so well, I said quietly, you wouldn't have to hit me to feel powerful. That line cut him open. I saw the flash of guilt, the flash of anger, and the flash of denial, all fighting for space on his face. He grabbed the counter behind me, caging me in. "You think you're brave now?" he asked. "You think you can talk to me like that and walk away?" "You tell me," I said, my voice steady. "Am I walking away?" He stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then he backed up, slowly, stiffly, like he couldn't understand why he was the one retreating. "I need air," he muttered and stormed out the back door. I waited until I heard it slam. And that's when it hit me, I had shaken him. Not just annoyed him. Not just angered him. I had destabilized the center of his identity. He couldn't predict me. He couldn't control me. And that terrified him more than anything. I walked upstairs, into the bedroom again, and stared at Leah's reflection in the mirror, my reflection right now. "This is working," I whispered to myself. "He's cracking." But I wasn't done. Not even close. If I wanted to protect her forever, I had to do more than scare him. I had to make him reveal his worst self, to himself, to me, and eventually to the world. I had to make him lose control in a way he couldn't hide, explain, or twist. I had to make him collapse under the weight of the monster he'd been building inside himself. And the only way to do that was to push him past the point of return. Not physically. Not yet. No. First, I had to break his mind. I had to make him doubt everything he believed he owned. Including his wife. Including his control. Including his power. The storm had started. But the destruction, that was still coming. I didn't see him for the rest of the morning. The house was silent, unnaturally silent, the kind of silence that feels thick, like it's waiting, like it's holding its breath. He stayed outside for almost an hour, pacing the backyard in that tense, agitated way Leah had described so many times. Hands on his hips. Jaw clenched. Stopping every few minutes to mutter something under his breath. Men like him don't know how to process fear, not real fear, the kind that comes from losing control. They only understand anger. But beneath anger there's always something else, weakness. And I could see it in the way he moved. He was unraveling. I watched him through the window for a moment, not hiding, not pretending to be busy. I just stood there and stared. When he finally turned and saw me, our eyes met through the glass, and for a second, he froze, like he wasn't sure if the woman looking back at him was the same one he'd married. I didn't look away. I didn't blink. I let him feel it, the weight of my stare, the confidence in it, the challenge. He looked away first. That told me everything. After another 20 minutes, he came inside, slamming the door harder than necessary. The sound echoed through the house, but it didn't shake me the way it shook Leah for years. If anything, it energized me. He walked into the kitchen and grabbed a beer from the fridge, yes, a beer at 10 in the morning, because that was his coping mechanism, alcohol and dominance, whichever one took over first. He chugged half of it, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and glared at me as if I had personally insulted the foundation of his world. "We need to talk," he said. His tone was serious, too serious, the kind he used when he wanted to appear reasonable before exploding. "Okay," I said simply. He hated the simplicity of that response. He wanted fear. Or defensiveness. Or apology. Something he could grab onto. But neutrality? That confused him. I followed him into the living room. He didn't sit, he stood in front of the couch like a man about to interrogate a suspect. I sat down, slowly, comfortably, on the couch cushion he always reserved for himself. His own seat. His throne. I saw the shock ripple across his face. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply. "Sitting," I replied. "Not there," he said. "You know that's my spot." "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters," he snapped. "Move." I stayed where I was. No, the room went silent. He stared at me like he didn't understand the word. Then he laughed, a cold, fake laugh that lasted just 1 second too long. "You're testing me," he said through clenched teeth. "I don't know why, but you are." "Maybe I'm just sitting on a couch," I said innocently. "Don't play stupid. Don't give orders." His chest rose and fell sharply. "You think you're brave, Leah? Ha! You think you're tough now?" he said, taking a step closer. "I know exactly what this is, you're throwing a tantrum." "If you say so." "I do say so," he spat. "I'm the man in this house." I looked up at him with the calmest expression I could manage. "Is that why you yell? To remind yourself?" His jaw opened slightly, offended, stunned, furious. "What did you just say?" he whispered, the threat thick in his voice. "I'm just asking," I said with a small shrug. "If you were really the man you want to be, would you need to scream it all the time?" That line hit something deep inside him. I saw it, like a punch he didn't see coming. His face twisted, then contorted, then flickered through emotions he wasn't strong enough to handle. Rage. Insecurity. Fear. Shame. Men like him spend their whole lives building a fragile tower out of dominance. One hint of truth, one crack, and the whole thing starts to wobble. He lunged forward, not to hit me, but to intimidate me, to scare me into shrinking back. But I didn't move. "Sit down," he ordered, pointing at the opposite couch cushion. "No," I said. "Sit down right now." "No," I repeated calmly. His hands curled into fists. "I swear to God, Leah, if you don't, you'll what?" I whispered. He opened his mouth, but the threat got stuck in his throat. That was the moment, right there. The moment he realized he didn't know what would work on me anymore. "You're not afraid of me," he said slowly, like the realization was dawning on him in real time. "Not today," I said. "What changed?" he demanded. "What did I do?" And there it was, the question every abuser eventually asks when the control stops working. What did I do? As if the years of damage weren't obvious. As if the bruises on my sister's ribs and the fear burned into her eyes didn't answer that question 100 times over. I leaned back into the couch he believed belonged to him. "Maybe I finally opened my eyes," I said. "Or maybe you lost your grip." His nostrils flared. His face darkened. "Don't talk to me like I'm some kind of monster." "If the shoe fits, you ungrateful," he caught himself mid-sentence. Changed tactics. A classic move. "You know," he said, softening his voice, "I've been trying. I've been patient with you. I've been taking care of everything." "Taking care of?" I echoed. "Taking care of this house," he said, gesturing around like he was presenting a mansion instead of a prison. "Taking care of you. Is that what you call it?" I asked. "What else should I call it?" "I feed you, I clothe you, I give you a roof over your head," I laughed. And I made sure he heard every ounce of condescension in it. "A roof you control," I said. "Food you monitor. Clothes you approve. You didn't build a home. You built a cage." His face flushed with rage. "I'm doing my best," he shouted. "You don't know how hard I work." "Work?" I repeated. "Your wife is terrified to breathe wrong around you. That's your work." "She exaggerates," he snapped. "She's too sensitive." "She's traumatized," I corrected. "Because of you." "Shut up," he said. "She's lucky I stay." I froze. Not because the words shocked me, they didn't. But because hearing them come from his own mouth, so confidently, so self-righteously, confirmed everything Leah had ever told me. He truly believed he was the victim. That he was the martyr. The savior. Not the abuser. Is that what you tell yourself? I asked. That you're the hero in this story? I keep her safe, he yelled. From what? I shouted back. From you? He stepped back as if I had physically hit him. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. His brain was scrambling, trying to regain control of the narrative. You don't understand, he said, shaking his head. You don't get it. She needs me. She falls apart without me. She fell apart because of you, I said. No, he whispered. No, she's just emotional. She's unstable. She's terrified, I said. And you liked it that way. He stared at me, breathing hard, the beer bottle trembling slightly in his hand. And then he said something I will never forget, if she leaves me, I won't survive. I stared. He wasn't lying. But he wasn't sincere either. It was the same manipulation he'd used on Leah for years. The same emotional chain he wrapped around her neck to keep her from escaping. I leaned forward slowly, eyes burning into his. Maybe it's time you learn how to survive without controlling someone. He blinked rapidly, like the words were too bright, too direct, too real. You're not her, he whispered again, this time more certain, more suspicious. Something's wrong with you. My heart tightened. I couldn't let him figure it out. Not yet. Not before I was finished. So I softened my voice and said, maybe something's finally right with me. He stood there for a long, tense moment, breathing hard, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he whispered, I don't know who you are today, but you're scaring me. Good. He should be scared. He should feel every ounce of the fear he carved into Leah. I'll be upstairs, he muttered finally, grabbing his beer and backing away. When he disappeared down the hallway, I exhaled slowly. My hands were steady. My heart beat normal. And for the first time since stepping into this house, I realized this plan was working better than I expected. He wasn't just rattled. He wasn't just confused. He was afraid. And that meant I no longer had to chase the unraveling. He was doing it himself. All I had to do now was finish what I started. I didn't go upstairs right away. I let him sit alone with his fear, let it simmer in his stomach the way my sister's fear had simmered in hers for years. The difference was that Leah's fear made her smaller. His fear was making him unstable. And instability was exactly what I needed. I stayed in the kitchen for a few minutes, listening to the faint thud of his footsteps moving back and forth upstairs. He wasn't calm. He wasn't thinking. He was spiraling. Good. Fear disrupts a man like him. It makes him sloppy. It makes him impulsive. It makes him reveal the truth he tries so hard to hide. Leah once told me he's only gentle when he's unsure of himself. And he's only unsure when something bigger scares him. That meant he was scared now. Not of me, not exactly, but of losing the control that made him feel like a man. When I finally walked upstairs, I found him sitting on the edge of the bed with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped together, staring at the floor like he was praying. Or bargaining. Or plotting. He looked up the moment he heard me in the doorway. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, confusion, anger, vulnerability, all tangled into one messy knot. Come here, he said quietly. It wasn't a command this time. Not exactly. More like a plea wrapped in authority. I stepped inside but didn't sit. I stood near the dresser, watching him. Why are you standing like that? He asked. Like what? Like you're analyzing me. I didn't respond. Sit down, he said again, softer. I didn't move. Leah, he said, with a tremor in his voice now. Please. That word. Please. A word he rarely said to her. A word she told me she'd heard maybe 5 times in their entire marriage, and always right before he needed something: sex, forgiveness, reassurance, validation. Never because he meant it. I walked closer, but instead of sitting next to him, I sat in the armchair across the room. Far. Separate. Independent. He watched me like he was watching a stranger wearing his wife's skin. I don't understand you today, he said. You're acting like someone else. You're talking like someone else. You're looking at me like, he trailed off. Like what? I asked. He swallowed hard. Like you're not afraid of me. Maybe I'm not, I said. He flinched. Why? What changed? Maybe I changed. No, he said, shaking his head. People don't change overnight. I leaned back in the chair, crossing my legs. Maybe they do when they wake up. His brows pulled together. Wake up from what? From a nightmare. He inhaled sharply. Are you calling me a nightmare? Do you feel like one? I asked. No, he snapped. I feel like I've been doing everything. And you, he pointed at me furiously, you've been ungrateful. Have I? Yes, he shouted. I work my ass off. I keep this home running. I make sure everything is stable. And all you do is complain. I haven't complained once today, I said calmly. But you've raised your voice 6 times. See, he said. That tone. That attitude. You mean honesty? And no, he yelled. I mean disrespect. Who taught you that honesty equals disrespect? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could almost see his thoughts crashing into each other. You're doing this on purpose, he said slowly. You're trying to get a reaction. Maybe. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this to me? The moment he said it, I felt a spark ignite inside me. It was the same thing Leah had told me he always said whenever she tried to express emotion. Why are you doing this to me? As if her pain was his inconvenience. As if her suffering was something she inflicted on him. As if her fear was an attack. It was always about him. Never her. Never what he did. Never the reality he created. I leaned forward slightly. What do you think I'm doing to you? He rubbed his face with both hands. You're making me feel like the bad guy. Maybe that's because you are. He stared at me, long, empty, shocked. Then he whispered, I'm not a bad guy. Then why are you afraid of being seen as one? His breathing grew shallow. Stop. Tell me, I said, keeping my voice low but firm. What are you so afraid of? Nothing, he yelled. Then why are you shaking? He looked at his hands, trembling slightly. He clenched them into fists to hide the shake. I'm not shaking, he insisted. You are, I whispered. Because you know deep down, you're losing control. That was when he snapped. Not physically. Mentally. He stood up suddenly, knocking over the beer bottle he had brought upstairs. It shattered on the floor. He didn't even flinch. Stop talking to me like I'm broken, he screamed. Stop it. Stop it. I remained seated. Still. Silent. Firm. My calmness fueled his fury like oxygen to a flame. You think you're better than me? He demanded. You think you're smarter? I shrugged one shoulder. You think you can push me around? I lifted an eyebrow. You think I won't do something about this? Would it make you feel like a man? I asked quietly. His face twisted. If I wanted to, I could. Hit me? I said. He froze. Completely. Like someone had pulled a plug and drained all the power out of him. He stared at me, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. I didn't say that, he whispered. But you thought it, I replied. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Honest. I can see it in your eyes, I said. The anger. The impulse. The lack of control. You're itching for an excuse. No, he said through gritted teeth. I'm not that person. Then why have you been that person to her? A beat. Then another. His throat worked as he swallowed. I didn't, you did. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She exaggerates. She hides bruises. His face drained of color. Finally, something broke inside him, something brittle, something guilty, something long buried under denial and ego. She needs me, he whispered. No, I said. She fears you. He shook his head violently. I protect her. From everyone except yourself. He staggered back as if my words had weight. They did. You're twisting things, he said. You're messing with my head. Good. Stop it, he screamed, grabbing his hair with both hands. You're driving me crazy. Now you know how she felt. He froze again. Head lowered. Shoulders shaking. And then, something unexpected happened. His voice broke. Actually broke. I'm not a monster, he whispered. For a brief moment, a tiny, fragile moment, I saw something raw in him. Pain. Not enough to excuse anything he'd done. But enough to show that he was finally seeing the reflection he'd been avoiding. Then why do you act like one? I asked softly. His breath hitched. He looked up at me with wide, panicked eyes. Can I fix it? He asked. Can I fix this? That was it. That was the crack I needed. The crack that confirmed everything. He wasn't ready to accept accountability. He wasn't ready to change. He was ready to negotiate. Manipulate. Bargain. He didn't want to fix her pain. He wanted to fix his comfort. No, I said. He swallowed hard. Why not? Because she's already gone. His mouth dropped open. What? She left. His face turned white. Then red. Then white again. Where? Someplace safe. Safe from what? You. He backed into the wall like the air had been punched out of him. She wouldn't leave me, he whispered. She wouldn't. She did. She needs me, he screamed. No, I said, standing. She needs freedom. He shook his head over and over, frantic, sweating, panicking. No, she can't leave, she can't. He ran past me, down the stairs, into the kitchen. I followed slowly. He tore through drawers, searching for something. Keys? A note? His control? Where is she? He yelled. Where did she go? Far from here. And oh, he slammed his fists on the table. She can't leave me. I won't let her. I stepped toward him. You don't get to let her do anything. He turned, tears streaking down his face, real panic, real fear, real collapse. I love her, he whispered. You love controlling her, I said. That's not love. He shook his head violently, grabbing the table to stay upright. She's mine, he shouted. And that was the final confirmation. Not love. Ownership. He was a man incapable of loving a woman he didn't control. And now, with his control gone, he was falling apart. "No," I said, stepping close enough that he had to look at me. "She never was." He stared at me, breathing hard, chest rising and falling like he was drowning. Then he whispered, "Who are you?" My heart pounded once. Hard. But my face didn't move. "I'm the part of her you crushed," I said softly. "And the part you can never hurt again." His lips parted as the truth, not the literal truth of who I was, but the truth of what I represented, hit him like a blow. I leaned in, my voice a whisper. "This ends now." He sank to his knees. I didn't touch him. I didn't comfort him. I didn't offer sympathy to the man who stole years from my sister's life. I simply watched as the monster finally saw his own reflection and couldn't stand it. He didn't stay on his knees for long. Men like him never do. At first, collapse looks like transformation, like an awakening, like maybe, this is the moment he finally understands what he's done. But the truth is simpler and uglier. Collapse is just the part before the rage begins again. And I knew it. I knew that his tears were not an admission of guilt but a reflex of losing control. A man like him wasn't grieving what he'd done, he was grieving the way his power was slipping through his fingers. So I didn't move. I didn't comfort him. I didn't say a single word. I waited. And after about 30 seconds, the shift happened. I saw it rise in him like heat from a furnace, anger blooming inside his eyes, pushing out the panic, replacing fear with something sharp and vindictive. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, slow, deliberate, and when he finally looked up at me, the vulnerability was gone. Something harder had taken its place. "You think you can take her from me?" he asked quietly, voice low and steady now. A dangerous calm. The kind he used before hurting her. I kept my posture loose, but my mind sharpened instantly. "She left," I said. All I did was tell the truth. He pushed himself to his feet. Not rushed. Not frantic. Controlled. Like a man who believed he still had options. "Where is she?" he asked again, voice quieter, but colder than before. "Somewhere safe." "There's no safe place away from me," he said. "She knows that." "No," I said. "She feared that." His jaw tightened. "Same thing." "Not even close." He took a step toward me. I didn't move. "Tell me where she is." No, his nostrils flared. "Leah," he said, dragging out the name, twisting it in his mouth like he was testing how it tasted when spoken through this new anger. "You're making a big mistake." "The only mistake," I said, "was letting you control her for so long." He suddenly smiled, a small, humorless smile that didn't match his eyes. "You think she can make it without me?" "She already is." "She's weak," he snapped. "She falls apart without direction. She falls apart under abuse." "You're twisting things," he insisted. "You're manipulating the situation. You're turning her against me." I stepped forward. "You turned her against herself long before I stepped in." His smile faded. "You think I won't find her? You think she can hide? You won't touch her again." "You don't know what I'm capable of," he said. "I do," I replied. "And that's exactly why she left." He stared at me for a long, cold moment. Then his eyes flicked to my hands, then to my stance, then to my expression, studying me carefully, realizing something wasn't adding up. "You're not scared," he said. "Not even a little." "No, why not?" "Because you don't own me," I said. "Not today. Not ever." He took a slow breath. "What happened to you?" he whispered, as if he genuinely couldn't understand why the version of Leah he built wasn't standing in front of him anymore. "I woke up," I said. He stared at me, eyes narrowing. "You're not acting like my wife. Maybe you never let her act like herself." No, he said suddenly, stepping back like a realization hit him. No, something's off. My heartbeat quickened for the first time. What are you talking about? He pointed slowly at my face. You look like her, he said. You sound like her. But something's wrong. You don't move like her. Your eyes, they're different. I forced myself not to react. You're imagining things. No, he whispered. No, I'm not. You're not her. My pulse surged, but my expression didn't budge. I'm right here. Who are you? He repeated, this time louder. Who the hell are you? I stepped closer, letting the tension tighten the space between us. I'm the part of her you can't break. He blinked, thrown off. What the hell does that mean? It means everything you did to her? Everything you told her? Everything you hid out of her? I'm the piece of her that survived it. And I'm the piece standing in front of you now. His confusion twisted into irritation. You're talking in circles. Maybe. But you understand me just fine. No, he said, shaking his head. No, something is different. Something is OFF. He stormed into the hallway, then the kitchen, pacing aggressively, muttering to himself, looking for something that made sense. Where's your phone? He demanded suddenly. What? Your phone. Show me your phone. Leah told me he checked her phone constantly, messages, call logs, photos, everything. I kept my voice calm. Why? Because you're acting suspicious, he said. And I want to know who you're talking to. No, he shouted. Give me the phone. I don't have it, I said. He froze. What? I said I don't have my phone. Where is it? Somewhere else. Somewhere else? He screamed. You left your phone somewhere else? Yes. He stared at me, disbelief spreading across his face like ink in water. You're lying. I'm not. You never leave your phone behind. Maybe I did this time. Why? Because I didn't want to be tracked. That landed like a brick. He flinched like the words physically hit him. Tracked, he repeated slowly. Why would you say that? I shrugged. Why do you think? He blinked rapidly, eyes darting left and right like he was trying to locate the ground beneath him. Leah, he whispered, voice trembling now, you're scaring me. Good, I said. You should be scared. His breath quickened. Why are you doing this? Why are you acting like? He stopped mid-sentence, staring at me with wide eyes. Unless you're not her. My stomach tightened. But my voice stayed level. Of course I'm her. No, he said, shaking his head violently. No. You're not. Something's wrong. Something's different. Who are you? I'm your wife, I said. Liar. Believe what you want. His panic flared again, hotter, angrier. If you're not Leah, he said slowly, then what did you do to her? Nothing. Where is she? Safe. He slammed his fist into the wall. Tell me right now. No, he lunged forward, fast, reckless, fueled by fear. But this time, I didn't stay still. I stepped aside smoothly, letting him crash past me, stumble, catch himself. He spun around, furious, humiliated. Stop playing with me. You started the game, I said. I'm just finishing it. He stared at me, breathing like a man drowning. I swear, if you hurt her, I'm the only one who hasn't. He stopped. Froze. Silence washed over the house. Heavy, thick, suffocating. I saw something break in him, not guilt, not remorse, but self-preservation ripping itself open. If she's gone, he whispered, I have nothing left. Start over, I said. Fix yourself. He shook his head violently. She's my life. You made her your property, I corrected. Not your life. I love her. You love control. I can change, he shouted. I can be better. I walked toward him slowly. He backed up, step by step, until he hit the wall again. I leaned in just enough for him to feel my breath. You had years to change, I whispered. You chose abuse instead. He squeezed his eyes shut. Just tell me where she is. No, please, he begged, voice cracking wide open. For a second, just a fraction of one, I felt something like pity. Not for him, never for him, but for the truth he was finally forced to face. He no longer owned the thing he built his identity on. Leah was gone. And so was the fear that kept his world in balance. He opened his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. If she left me, he whispered, I'll die. I stared at him. Then that's your problem, I said coldly. Not hers. He crumpled to the floor again, sobbing into his hands. This time I didn't watch with satisfaction. I watched with calculation. The collapse was real. The pain was real. The fear was real. But none of it was about her. It was about losing the reflection he saw in her, his puppet, his possession, his proof of dominance. I turned away from him and started walking toward the stairs. His voice chased after me, desperate, broken, furious. Don't leave. Don't walk away from me. I stopped at the base of the stairs and turned slowly. I'm not leaving, I said. Not yet. Then tell me where she is. No, why? Because you're not done learning, I said. Not yet. His eyes widened with a mixture of fear and rage. What do you want from me? I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said the words that would finally push him over the edge. I want you to see yourself. He blinked rapidly, confused, shaking. What does that mean? I stepped closer. You've spent years destroying her, I said. Now I'm going to make you destroy the version of yourself you pretend to be. He stared at me, trembling. And when I'm done, I whispered, you'll never come near her again. He swallowed hard. What are you going to do? I leaned forward until my lips were inches from his ear. I'm going to finish breaking you. And as I straightened up, he looked at me not with anger, not with confusion, but with pure, genuine terror. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the predator in the house. He wasn't the king. He wasn't the threat. For the first time, he was prey. When he finally understood, truly understood, that I wasn't scared of him, something inside him snapped in a way I hadn't seen before. Not the violent burst of rage Leah described in her stories. Not the silent, cold intimidation he used when he wanted to punish her slowly. No. This was something different. Something new. Something he wasn't built to handle. He looked at me like I was a stranger standing in the ruins of his kingdom. Like I was the ghost of a woman he thought he owned. Like I was the reckoning he never imagined would come. And in a way, I was. He pushed himself up from the floor, unsteady, wiping his face with the sleeve of his shirt like a child who didn't want to be caught crying. I watched him carefully, every breath, every muscle, every flick of his eyes. He wasn't done. Men like him never collapse just once. So I waited. And eventually, as I expected, the anger returned, slowly at first, creeping into his posture, into the tension in his jaw, into the sharpness of his breathing. He straightened his shoulders and pointed at me with trembling hands. You think you can just walk in here, he whispered, and ruin everything? I didn't ruin anything, I said. You did. And oh, he snapped, stepping closer. And no, I didn't. She did this. With her attitude. With her mouth. With her lies. She never lied, I said. She hid. Same thing, he hissed. No, I said softly. It's not. He shook his head rapidly, pacing again, muttering words under his breath, disconnected, frantic. She promised she'd never leave, he said. She promised. She promised because she was scared, I replied. She promised because you trained her to. Trained, he shouted. She's not an animal. You treated her like one. He stopped. Slowly turned to me. I treated her like my wife. Exactly, I said. Your wife. Your possession. Something you controlled, not someone you loved. His lips parted, then tightened. Stop saying that. Saying what? That I'm the bad guy, he exploded. That I'm the monster. That I hurt her on purpose. I didn't. I swear I didn't. Intent doesn't erase damage, I said. And you did hurt her. Again and again. You know that. And oh, he yelled. I don't know that. I was strict, yes. I was demanding, yes. But she was too sensitive. She cried at everything. She made me feel like I was the problem. You were. And oh, he repeated, grabbing his hair. I was trying to fix her. The room fell silent. The air tightened. I walked closer, stopping only when I stood 2 feet away. She didn't need fixing, I whispered. She needed protecting. He stared at me, breathing hard, eyes darting back and forth across my face as if searching for the version of Leah he recognized. But that version wasn't here. And he finally understood that. Truly understood it. You're not her, he whispered again. His voice wasn't angry now. It was terrified. You're not Leah. I didn't blink. I'm the part she lost, I said. The part you beat out of her. The part she buried so deep she forgot what it felt like. His breath shook. So who are you? Her truth, I said. Her courage. Her voice. I stepped even closer. And now I'm the one talking. He stumbled backward, shaking his head. I'm going to find her, he said, voice rising. I don't care what you say. I don't care where she is. She can't run from me. She loves me. She fears you, I replied. Fear isn't love. It's close enough. No, I said with a quiet venom, it's not even related. He gritted his teeth. If she's gone, if she really left me, I'll lose everything. Then lose it. He froze. What? Lose it, I repeated. Lose her. Lose this house. Lose your ownership. Lose the illusion of control you've been holding onto like a child clutching a broken toy. You don't understand, he whispered. She's my reason. Your reason to what? I asked. To yell? To hurt? To dominate? To feel powerful? He looked away. She made me better. She made you feel big, I corrected. Because she was small. I didn't make her small, he said weakly. You did. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, I said, stepping closer until he had nowhere left to go. You made her small. You made her quiet. You made her scared. You chipped away at her until she didn't recognize herself anymore. He covered his ears with his hands like a child refusing to hear the truth. Stop. Please stop. Why? I asked. Because the truth hurts? He nodded, tears streaming. It hurts. Good, I whispered. Maybe now you understand even a fraction of what she went through. He collapsed again, this time sitting on the floor with his back against the wall like his body couldn't support the weight of his own denial anymore. I watched him for a few moments. Watched the rise and fall of his breath. Watched the cracks widening inside him. And then I said the final blow he needed to hear, "You will never see her again." His head shot up. No. Yes. No. You're done. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. She is. I'll find her, he screamed, pounding his fists into the floor. I'll go to the police. And tell them what? I asked. That your wife left you because you abused her? He froze. His breathing stopped. I saw the realization hit him, there was no story he could tell that wouldn't incriminate him. Not anymore. Not after everything. She's gone, I repeated calmly. She's safe. And you're alone. He stared up at me with a look I had never seen on a man like him before, a look of complete, utter defeat. Not temporary. Not performative. Real. I took a slow breath and said the final sentence he needed to hear, and she'll never come back. His face crumpled as if the world collapsed beneath him. He covered his face with both hands and sobbed, loud, broken, guttural sobs that filled the entire house with a sound that felt like the end of something enormous. I watched. I listened. I let him break. When he finally lifted his head, he whispered, "What do I do now?" "Let her go," I said. "Let her live." "And me?" he asked, voice begging. "What about me?" I stared at him, long and hard. "Figure out who you are without someone to hurt." He closed his eyes. And for a moment, I swear, for just a moment, he understood. Not fully. Not deeply. Not enough to fix the damage. But enough to face himself. Enough to see the monster he had become. Enough to let go. I turned to leave. Walked toward the door. He didn't follow. Didn't yell. Didn't demand. He just whispered, "Tell her." "I'm sorry." I paused. "You tell yourself," I said. "She doesn't need to hear it." And I walked out. Out of the house. Out of the cage. Out of the last place that ever held power over my sister. When I finally reached the street, the air felt different, lighter, sharper, almost cold with freedom. Leah was waiting far away, safe, protected, ready to step into a life she deserved but never believed she could have. And me? I wasn't just her sister anymore. I was her shield. Her voice. Her justice. Her vengeance. And now, I was her future. If you're still listening, if you stayed through all of this, I want to thank you. Stories like this aren't easy to hear. They're not pretty. They're not simple. But they're real. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, stories of women finding their courage, their strength, their freedom, just stay with me. Hit the like button. Subscribe. It helps more than you know. And maybe the next story will save someone who needs it.